Marvel Studios is by no means perfect, and they have their issues. A lot of people have tried to figure out what exactly happened with the MCU after Avengers Endgame and what is the real problem. And I think the moment you look at it and look back at how the MCU has grown, you realize that the problem is the amount of projects that they made. So for this, I have to bring up phases 1, 2, and 3. When we look at this, we see a pattern that emerges. Phase 1 was very experimental, and of course, it wasn't really received that well. Most of the projects are not top of the line reviewed, and they sit somewhere around a 7 out of 10. The only exception being Iron Man 1 and the first Avengers film. Of course, after Avengers 1, Marvel found massive success, and Phase 2 leads to some more risk-taking. I mean, just look at it. Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man with Avengers Age of Ultron in the middle. And remember, Guardians and Ant-Man, those were supposed to be massive failures. Then we get to Phase 3. I mean, look at this. Obviously, comfort levels are high, right? And they're taking some risks here. Black Panther. Now I know, revisionist history, Black Panther, amazing, big film box office. Remember, it was estimated to fail on its box office opening weekend. And I put fail in quotation marks because it was only expected to make 100 million, not 200 like it did. Captain Marvel, big. Ant-Man and the Wasp, big. Thor Ragnarok, huge. Spider-Man, big. The Avengers films, I mean, what more is there to say? Spider-Man Far From Home, Sony's first billion-dollar film and the biggest box office draw for Spider-Man to date. That is 23 projects from 2008 to 2019. Absolutely stellar. That is the sign of a studio that is slowly growing and then really hits its stride and everybody is in. But then, this is where I want to point to the real problem with the MCU. We go from 23 projects in, let's just say, around a decade to them announcing Phase 4. Now, before I show you Phase 4, remember, Phase 4 was announced and this was all going to come out in 2.5 years. They were going to be making 12 projects in under 3 years. That's insane, right? Except that's not the punchline. Here's the punchline. Another 13 projects were going to be made at the same time, all for Disney Plus. Each one of these, when it was announced, a minimum of 6 episodes per. 25 projects in under 3 years. They were going to make more content by the hour and in total across the entire MCU to date in less time than it took them to deliver everything in the MCU prior. All of phases 1, 2, and 3 are dwarfed by the amount of content they announced, again, in under 3 years. They dated multiple of these projects, and the last project on that entire list was gonna be, of course, the Fantastic Four, which was rumored to lead into the next Avengers film, which is true because that was going to be the Kang Dynasty. And what you're not even seeing here is, of course, the other stuff, like another Spider-Man film, which wasn't announced yet at this time. So what I'm saying is that the Marvel Studios problem isn't that they make bad content. It's the fact that they've always had content that's up and down. But the amount of content they've put out in this short span of time, and a lot of this isn't even out yet because of problems due to logistics, the pandemic, the strikes and everything, it's made this phase last way longer than it should have. And we are essentially spinning our feet, still trying to get through half of this content when we already know what's coming next, and they've announced multiple new projects that aren't even listed. The Marvel Studios problem, the real problem, is that time ran out. Because right now, we would literally be watching the Fantastic Four. And we'd be watching it from the comfort of our own home because it would already be out. But that didn't happen. So the MCU problem is kind of just the same problem they've always had. But now more eyes are on it because they've exponentially pumped out 2 times the amount of content than ever before. And in a time frame that's way shorter.